All right, so everyone got their code up? Okay. So today we're going to go over just finishing up our Pong. Okay. So let's go over our enemy hit area and get it to work. Then we'll go over how to make our enemies move. We'll go step by step again. Okay. And then we'll go over how to test it on our E-pads again, so then we can test them on our E-pads, which will be fun. All right? All right, so let's go through the steps of creating the enemy hit area again. I know we kind of started it last time, but let's go through how to create it and then our code. All right. So if we look at our enemy, I'm going to go ahead and double click on my enemy in my library to edit him. And you can see up here that you're editing your enemy in the top left hand corner. Make sure you're in the right place. And then last time I did create that enemy hit area. So if you guys didn't create it, we can go over how to create it. I put it on a new layer. So in my enemy, I made this new layer. In fact, let me go ahead and delete things in here. So your enemies probably look like just one frame, right? So far, unless you've created the animation on him. So let me go ahead and remove my frames so it looks more like how your code does. Your flash. And what I did is I made a new layer for my hit area, which will be this layer here. And you can name that layer your hit area layer if you want. So that way you know which layer it is. And you can lock your other layers. Or if you just have one layer, lock your other layer and then make a new layer called hit area. On that new layer, you can draw a rectangle. So right here you can see I've drawn a rectangle. Now I've already made this into a movie clip, so if you drew your rectangle with your rectangle tool, then you'll F8 him and make him into a movie clip symbol. Okay. Oops. All right. And you can see his properties. I named him enemy hit area, and then I exported for action script. Okay, so if you draw your rectangle in there, draw it on a new layer, call it enemy hit area. I named it with a capital letter because he is a movie clip name, class name. I exported for action script. You'll see him over here on the right in your library, and you should see the AS linkage there. Okay. And then since he's on his own layer, you can drag him over your enemy, and that'll be his hit area. And then go over here to his properties. And in the properties over here, you can give it a name. I named it enemy hit area again, but this time with a lowercase letter since it's a variable name. This is like his instance variable. So it's an instance variable of our enemy. So every enemy will have an instance of an enemy hit area. Okay. So that way it won't hit off the surrounding box of my enemy, it will hit off this rectangle, the ball. That's all we need to do inside of here. If I go back to scene 1 and then save this. Okay. In my library, I'll see him with his hit area. I didn't group them together. They're automatically grouped because when I go to my enemy here, it's on his timeline. So they are kind of together already. Okay. All right. And then we're going to add him to our code. right, so this is how I added him. So I added his instance right here. So here's my enemy.enemy hit area. That's his instance. And before I was getting that null pointer reference. And a null pointer reference means it wasn't created in RAM. So we're going to force him to create him with the new operator. So we say, okay, enemy.enemy.hit area. So that's his enemy hit area, his individual hit area. Let's assign you a new enemy hit area, and capitalization matters, so this is the variable name. And then this is our constructor name. So this is what's constructing it in RAM for us. So it's creating that new enemy hit area, a new instance of it. And then every movie clip does have its own add child method. We inherit it from our movie clip, from being a movie clip. And so I tell my enemy to add this child to himself. Add your enemy hit area to yourself. And that way it will be added to the stage. When we add our enemy to the stage, inherently the hit area will be added with him since he's added to the enemy. And actually in my videos, I didn't actually have to write these 2 lines of code, but it wouldn't work without them this time around. I'm sure if they did a flash update and they made us do it more proper. Okay. So this adds that instance, and then this adds him to my enemy, and then when I add my enemy to the stage, it's added to the stage. Okay. And then the only other thing that you need to change in here is when he gets hit, you need to tell it to check to see if it's hit the hit area instead of just the enemy. So in that one function called ball movement, the one that we copied, down there in that function, when we check to see if the ball has hit our enemy, I now say, okay, don't just check to see if the ball hit the enemy, see if it hit his enemy hit area. Alright. So we created him, we added him to the stage, and now we're going to check to see if he's gotten hit. Make sure you save everything and then save your AS file. And then test to see if it's working. And actually it did add him back here. So notice it added him to the XY value of my enemy, which is not exactly where I want it. So I thought maybe you guys could figure out what could we do to make this in the correct location. Unless you want the hit area back here. So note that it added it to the default value of, X0, Y0. It added that hit area to that location. I think because we added it through our code instead of it adding it through the enemy object. Okay. So what would it be his XY value? We can go and we can look at our flaw file to figure that out even. We click on that guy there. We can see his XY value here. So in relation to this crosshair, that's our XY value. In fact, actually, we should change his XY value to the back right here. So actually that'll fix it even better, to tell you the truth. Let's do that. So double click on your hit area and then move his XY value. So move the object itself so that the little plus sign here is in the back in the middle. and that'll put him in the correct location. Alright, so I went to my flaw file, I double clicked on my enemy hit area, I moved my enemy hit area so that his crosshair or his little plus sign here is in the back right center. And I can test it again, and now you can see that he is in the correct location. Yes, he's covering my enemy, and we'll take care of that in a second. That seems to work a little bit better. Now we don't want to see the hit area, we want it to be invisible. So if we'd like that hit area to be invisible, we'll just change its alpha to 0. So alpha means the transparency. I can hit my ball correctly. Alright. So to make it invisible then, you could go to where we added him to the stage and we could change his alpha property. This is a property of every movie clip. And since enemy hit area is a movie clip, and the alpha is the transparency. And if we do the transparency as 0, that means he's all the way transparent. 100 would be all the way opaque. So he's still on the stage and he's still part of that enemy. He's just invisible. All right. Well, do most people get that to work? I'm assuming. We can take a break right now to see if everyone got it to work. Yes. Let me pause this. Watch here. All right, so let's make our character move. Okay. So if I want my character here to be able to move, now I've already cut his arm out. But maybe I'll make his leg move too. So if your character, when you click on him, if he's not a whole bunch of little dots, I know it's kind of hard to see, but he's a whole bunch of little dots right now. So to make him into those little dots, so if I want to cut out part of him, he does need to get broken up. So if I want to cut out like his leg and make him kick his leg or something, then I need to be able to separate him. So what you do is you take your picture, and we're going to break him up. So you'll do a Control B and you break him. And when you break him up, you'll see a whole bunch of little dots, and so that breaks him up into those pixels, so then we can grab certain pixels that we want. Okay. So I did a Control B and broke him up. And then I'm going to use my lasso tool, and I can zoom in. So you can do a Control plus and Control minus to zoom in and out. Okay. And I'm going to take my lasso tool here, and I'm going to select the pixels that I want to move. Okay. So with that lasso tool, you can see that I selected those pixels. The pixels that I selected are all kind of highlighted with the little dots here. Okay. And actually, I accidentally selected his arm too. So let me do that again really quick. Make sure I don't select his arm on accident. All right. So I'm going to select just his leg here. And I locked the wrong layer. So let me select Just his leg again. And the more accurate you can get, the better probably, right? I just kind of did mine fast. So I got his leg. And now I'm going to do a Control G and group that leg into its own object. You can see now I can pull his leg off. Okay, so now the leg is separate than the body. Okay, I can do a Control Z and undo that. But what I want to do is I'm going to take that leg and put it on its own layer. It might be easier if it's on its own layer. Okay, so I'm going to do a Control X and cut out that leg. I'm going to make a new layer down here. I'm going to lock all the other layers except that layer. And I'll do a Control V and paste that leg there. Okay, and I dragged it back down to where it needed to be. Alright, so now this leg is on its own layer, and now I'm going to animate the leg. Okay. So if I want kind of a smooth animation, I can add a tween to him, but remember if you add a tween, it has to be a movie clip. Okay. So I'm going to F8 it and make it its own movie clip. I'm going to call it enemy leg or just leg. Probably enemy leg if I'm going to have a player leg and an enemy leg. I'm going to export for ActionScript in here. Press OK. And now I'm going to tween it. Okay, so I'm going to right click and say create a motion tween. And since he's on his own layer, it creates that motion tween and sets it out to 24 frames. Now the rest of him disappeared because those frames didn't extend all the way to 24 frames. So I can click in the 24th frame on all of those layers and press the F5 key to make new frames. And so that extends those frames all the way to 24 frames, so then his body's still on all those frames. It copies that picture to all those frames. All right. Now in that leg layer, I do have this tween now. Okay. In fact, I can even name that layer. It'd probably be smart for me to name these layers. Now, I would go to the last layer because, or not the last layer, the last frame in my tween. So here's my leg tween. I'm going to that last frame first, and I'm going to add a keyframe there so that his leg will come back to where it's supposed to be at the end of the tween. Okay? So I want that leg to come back into position at the end. So I'm going to hit F6 and add a keyframe right there. So that keyframe will remember where that leg position is at this point. And then I'm also going to add a keyframe on frame 2 so that at the beginning of the tween, he'll be at that point too. All right. Now, right about the middle is when I want the leg to kind of kick up and be in the up position. So I'm going to put my my head here about in the middle of my tween. And I'm going to raise the leg up. So I'm going to use my free transform tool to rotate it. Note that the point of rotation is this little white circle right here. And if I'm in my free transform tool and I put my mouse over that white circle, my mouse will make a little circle icon underneath the mouse. Do you see that? And that means I have that circle selected. So I can click and I can drag that circle to where I want it to rotate. I want it to rotate about about this point of rotation. It's kind of funny, it's right there. But, yeah. Okay. But you want the point of rotation to be closer to the body, right? So then when I'm rotating it, he's kicking up a little bit. He does a little kick. Now note that, it does kind of separate from his body a little bit. And so if I didn't want that gap to be right there, one thing you can do is you can make another layer. So I made another layer, and I could call this the back of my leg layer. And on that layer, what I could do is I'm going to unlock my enemy. I'm going to use my lasso tool to kind of grab the back area here. Actually, I do want to lock my leg layer, so I'm not selecting my leg. And I'll kind of select. Why did I choose a leg? But I'll Control C that. And maybe I shouldn't select right there. Well, I'll select over here. We'll select this part of this leg. So something that kind of looks like I could copy and paste it to the back there. Okay, so I'm going to Control C that. Go to my new layer here. I can even lock my other layer. I'm going to Control V. And then move it down here so it'll fill in that gap with just some color. And you can even move his leg up and say, okay, I'm going to move that right about here. So then it doesn't look like a weird gap. And then what you could do is you take that layer and you drag it to the back, and so then it's behind everything, so you can't really tell. Actually, that looks kind of funky. I'm going to move him up a little. Okay, try not to make it look weird. Okay. But then you won't have that big gap right there. Okay. No, you might have to use your eraser tool. So if you made some extra marks like I did, you can erase them a little bit. So remember, your eraser tool lets you erase some of those pixels. So then it doesn't look weird. All right, so now we need to add the action script, unless you want him to constantly kick. Okay, so right now he's going to rotate and constantly kick, actually. Well, actually he didn't. Why didn't he? I have to save him. He should be constantly kicking. I think I added him to the enemy and not my Deadpool character is what I did. Yeah, I added it to the wrong character, actually. So you guys don't have to change this. Hopefully you added yours movement to the right character. But just to see that he does constantly kick. See, there he goes. So we need to add the, unless you want him constantly kicking like that. Okay, you could just leave it like that if you wanted him to be like that. If you want constant movement, you don't have to add action script to stop it from moving. He's doing the can-can. Okay. So if you want it to stop and then play, you're going to add 2 more layers. Add them to the top. You're going to add an actions layer and a labels layer. So you can name one your A layer and name this guy your labels layer. And we're going to kind of program it like we did our car, where we make it stop on the first frame and then we label the second frame in our labels layer. Do you guys remember that? So on your actions layer, in that first frame, you're going to tell it to stop. So if your actions panel's not open, you can hit F9 or go to Window Actions. And on that first frame, make sure your playhead's on the first frame and add stop to that first frame. So that'll make him not kick all the time. That makes him stop. And then on your second frame in your labels layer, click on the second frame in your labels layer, you'll name that frame something like kick or move. or something, okay? And remember that adds, oh wait, actually, before you do that, sorry, Control Z and undo that. We need to add a keyframe to the second frame, so it has to be a keyframe that we label. So on that second frame, remember to hit F6 and make it a keyframe first, and then give it a label, so that way it doesn't label the first frame on accident. Okay. So make that a keyframe. You only can put a label on a keyframe. I'll name that second frame kick. Now you can see my labels on the correct frame, the second one. Okay. So he'll be holding in this position. He'll be holding on frame 1. It'll be stopped. And then when I tell it go to and play kick, he'll come to frame 2, play the animation, go back to frame 1 and stop. Okay. So now I just need to tell my code when to play the kick. So when to go to and play kick. I got to tell it when. So in my code, come over here for a second. When do I want him to kick? I want him to kick when he hits the ball. So I'm going to go to my ball movement function. And I'm going to look for that hit test when the hit test is for the enemy. So when it hits my enemy, that's when I want it to kick. I want him to kick out when he gets hit. So I'm going to say enemy, go to and play your kick. So that'll go to the enemy's timeline. It'll go to and play that timeline. It'll go to the frame labeled kick, and it'll play it. Okay. And we can see that work if we test him. And you could add movement to your player the same way. So when it hits him, he goes to and plays his little kick function. Now if you want him to kick faster, remember you go to his timeline, you just make it play, you know, in smaller, you can move that tween to a little bit smaller, he'll kick a little bit faster. If you want him to kick a little bit faster. Yeah, he's kicking kind of slow. So remember, if I want him to kick faster, I would just go to his timeline again. And then I could shorten all of these. So I could go, make sure you're unlocking them. And I could shorten all of my... Actually, I'll just remove these frames since they're just regular frames. I'll remove them. Remove these guys. Actually, it doesn't matter too much if you didn't remove these, but... And you could add other actions in here as well. Such as if I wanted his arm to move, I've already cut out his arm. And so if I wanted his arm to move as well, I could do the same thing with his arm. Since I've already cut out his arm, I might as well. Oops. Now I'll need to add some red or black right here behind his arm. Right. All right. Then I'm going to select these frames here and delete them. And then I'm going to select these frames here and delete them. So now he'll kick a little bit faster because now instead of 24 frames a second, he's playing that same animation within 16 frames. So it's a little bit faster than a second. So if I play him, oh, remember I set him to lose sometimes, so he just lost right there. Oh. Alright, cool. And there he does his little kick and his little arm movement. Alright. So pretty easy. You just add to your timeline those animations. You can make him do different things each time. You would just line them up and put new labels, and then he could go to and play different things. Okay, if you wanted to. You can actually do more than one movement if you wanted. All right, and then last but not least, I was going to demo again how to test it on our e-pads. We're going to test it on our e-pads the same way we've been doing. I think we should test it on our e-pads. Okay. So I'm going to grab an e-pad. Turn it on. So remember, you guys can use our e-pads, or you can even use your own phone. Remember, some students have their own phone and e-pads. That's awesome. You take one of these games to an interview, it'd be awesome. Right? Show them your code, tell them you programmed it. All right, my e-pad's starting up. So as my e-pad's starting up, remember that when you want to publish it for your e-pad, you'll publish an APK file. Remember, it's .apk is the runnable for an Android device. So you would go to File, Publish Settings, and then instead of just a Flash Player 11.4 for your target, you would choose Air for Android. And if we choose Air 3.2 for Android, that's fine, or you can choose Air 3.4 for Android. Okay. Now before it'll compile, we need to configure it, so we go over to the little wrench icon there, and we change our settings. So some of the things I like to do is I like to go full screen and tell it landscape. Now remember, for the deployment, you do have to have a certificate. So if you had a certificate previously, you could use it and then put in your password. But remember, you can always create these. It's really easy to create them. You just hit that create button. Remember that I'm not going to check your certificate stuff. So you just have to have all the fields filled in. And then remember your password. And then you would browse and you would save it in the default location, which is the location of where your files are saved. So you would just save it there. Notice it's saved as a P12 file. Okay. It creates it. You put in your password, which I usually just make test or something simple. I usually do my password as test. Okay. And then, we've never actually done this, but you can actually make icons, remember? Icons are really simple to make. In fact, maybe I'll make that in a second after we get this working here. You can add them after. And then you hit publish. And remember that it's going to publish the APK file in the same folder as where your other files are saved. Okay, so then you click OK. It's published now. Alright, so I can look over here to where I've saved these things in my AS files. There's my APK it just created. So when you connect your device, just say open device to view your files. So this is my ePad, my Nexus 7. I go to his internal storage and I go to his downloads folder. And I just drag that APK to his downloads. And that copies it to my device. And then, I guess I can demo this up here. I can disconnect him now. And I click on the installer on the device. So it's an app to install things. I'll see my Pong game here. I'll click on my Pong game. Right. And then install selected apps. Hit install. I'm showing the camera, but you guys do. Okay, you just click install. It says open and done. You can click open. And then there's our Pong game. Okay. And notice that the clicking changes to a tap. And our game is working. Hopefully yours look better than mine. This is working. Okay, cool. So I encourage you all to test on our ePads today. Okay, get your APK files working. Let's go over how to make icons really quick. So in your published settings, when you clicked on that wrench and you went to icons, you saw that you needed 3 icons. One 36 by 36, one 48 by 48, and one 72 by 72. Okay, and then we're going to upload them and put them right in here. Okay. So we'll use a photo editing tool to create them. So you can go over to your folder where you stored things, and that's where I had my ping in here, or my GIF. Here it is, my Deadpool classic ping. I can open it with my Fireworks editor, either Fireworks or Photoshop. Okay. All right. Now it's going to make a square. And so I'm going to edit him so he's more square-like, because if I change him 36 by 36 or 72 by 72 right now, you can see that he's going to look a little funky. He looks short and fat. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z and undo that. If you have an elongated one, you know, like how mine is, you can make it look more square-like. Okay, by using our crop tool over here. Okay, so that'll be my icon. So I'll use my selection tool. I just click on my Deadpool character. I come over down to the bottom left, and I can change his height and width right here. So I just change it to 72 by 72. I click anywhere off of it in the gray area and then say Fit Canvas, and voila, I have my icon. So I'll do a File, Save As. I'll save it as Icon 72. Okay. And I'll click Save. And then, oh, sorry, when I changed his height and width, make sure that it is 72 by 72. For some reason it changed it down here, but now I see it's 72 by 72 and we're good. I saved it, Control S. And now I'll come down here and I'll make my 48 by 48. So I click 48 and 48 in the height and width. Click anywhere off of it, fit my canvas. Make sure it says 48 by 48. And I'll go Files, Save As. Icon 48. And then I click on him again, and I change it to 36 by 36. I fit canvas, do a File, Save As, Icon 36. Now, if you really wanted to, you could do all different icons, not just the same one, but I just did the same one each time, which is fine. Okay, but now I got my icons. Wasn't that easy? Yes. Okay, you can make some icons. It does, you know, it makes, when you have your ePad, instead of that little Android guy, it'll have your icon, which looks cool. Okay. So you come back to Flash. You'll go to File, Publish Settings, of course. Hit that little wrench icon again. Go to your Icons tab. Okay. And now I can click this little folder here to search for my icon. Here's my icon 36. And I can click on 48 and do the same thing. Tell it icon 48. And then my icon 72, I can say, okay, icon 72. And voila, now when I hit publish, it'll publish it with those icons. So then when you see it on your ePad, it'll have your little icon on there, not that generic default Android character. Okay, which makes it look, more personal and kind of adds that touch to it, so it looks like your game. So then you would just publish it again, and it'll publish it with those icons now. Okay, you take it to the ePad, drag the APK file again, reinstall it, and then you could see your icons in there. Okay, so then when you're running your game, you'll see your icon instead. In fact, I should test it up here. All right. Any questions on that? Otherwise, we're going to pause again, and then today we want to finish